At a recent rally in Wisconsin, Donald Trump gave a riveting speech in which he addressed the concerns of the American people, laid out detailed policy plans for helping the country, and above all, demonstrated how much he cares about American democracy. Okay, none of that happened, obviously, because it was a Donald Trump rally. The best that could be said about his performance is that he did not try to sell us any overpriced, cheaply made products, at least not this time. Most of all, it was the usual nonsense about crowd size with the what we've come to expect from him, the combination of anti-immigrant hatred, personal attacks against his opponents, lies, delusions, and increasingly, self-inflicted wounds. As for crowd size, it was, of course, like nothing anybody had ever seen before. But because of the nefarious manipulations of Vice President Kamala Harris, the rally had to be held in a relatively small venue, which was basically a big room. Why? Well, here's why.
It's something special. But outside, we have thousands and thousands of people. Would anybody love to give up their seat? So we were going to have a thing outside someplace in an area where we could have held the people. And I would say, what do you think, 40, 50,000 people at least out there. This went almost all the way to the airport. And looked like when Lindbergh landed in New York. Do you remember that? He had all the way, the Broadway, the way they used to do it. And this looked like it. But thousands and thousands of people. And they all could have had a lot of fun. Instead, now they're probably leaving and walking back home because we have a nice little room that probably holds 1,500, 2,000, maybe less. And outside, you have 40, 50,000 people because the administration couldn't give us the Secret Service necessary because they're guarding the Iranian president.
In addition to Donald's totally normal word association, saying the word airport made him think about Charles Lindbergh for some reason, he pretended that people were leaving because Kamala Harris isn't providing his campaign with enough Secret Service agents. She's the vice president. She's not in charge of assigning Secret Service agents to anybody. Plus, of course, Congress just gave the Secret Service an additional $300 million to beef up security for both of the presidential candidates. A fly made a cameo appearance, perhaps thinking it was a Mike Pence rally, but clearly the fly had the good sense to realize it should not land on Donald Trump's head. Donald, on the other hand, did not know well enough to avoid talking about the fly, so we got this.
Remember, there's a hat that's made that sells like crazy. Oh, there's a fly. Oh, I wonder where the fly came from. See, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had a fly up here. You're changing rapidly, but we can't take it any longer. We can't take it any longer. It takes.
Because Donald's incapable of letting anything go, he referred to all of the stupid people, which would include me, who believe that he fell into the trap that Kamala Harris set for him at the debate, which he swears absolutely, unequivocally, goddammit, he did not do. And that's when we knew without doubt that the narcissistic injury that Kamala Harris inflicted on him at the debate is still an open, gaping wound that she continues to pour massive amounts of salt into.
And when I mention that, they go, oh, he's fallen into a trap because he's, but you ever see that? Whenever I criticize, they say, all the stupid people, the anchors back there, no, they say, he fell into a trap, her trap. She can't set a mental trap. There is no. But if she says something wrong, like in the debate, she said something wrong, I question it. She said another thing wrong, I made her look bad. She said another thing. They don't want me to ever question They said, oh, he fell into a trap. He questioned the fact.
Just as bragging about passing the cognitive test is to fail the cognitive test, talking about the trap is to fall into the trap. Donald, of course, has always had to prop himself up, but his delusions about his superiority are becoming increasingly detached from reality. He claimed that he would rather be doing anything rather than run for the presidency, which is really the only thing keeping him out of prison. And then he put a picture in our heads, which in itself should be disqualified. I mean, not even his rabid crowd of followers is buying this bullshit anymore. They were laughing at him, but they're still totally on board with the worst of his most vile and violent rhetoric. Of course, Donald was projecting here, but when he makes these despicable racist statements, it's the crowd we need to be paying attention to.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. Okay? She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this.
Start the whole brain-melting experience by discussing the terrible problem this country has with terrorism. You forgot to mention that it's actually domestic terrorism we need to be most worried about. He said this.
And they're terrorists. They're terrorists. They're terrorists at the highest level. We have some of the greatest terrorists in the world in our country right now. We have no idea where they are. We have no idea anything about them. They could be in Iowa. They could be in Idaho. They could be here.
You know what, guys? The worst terrorist among us just gave a rally in Wisconsin. He's the one we need to be worried about.